Welcome to Gramercy Park. My name is Paula Gloria. This is my home. So this is the primary anchoring spot in the world. Gramercy Park has a very vast history, many interesting artists, musicians, contributors to social advancement. In this case, we're going to be talking about many different topics. One in particular is the Divine Mother. The Divine Mother is understood mostly in India. She's still worshipped in India, and she's understood as the 5 elements: earth, air, fire, sky, water. In this particular case, we're in a city, and the city still is part of nature. We think of the 5 elements as part of nature, but everything is part of nature, whether it's automobiles, city sounds, trees in a park, water running out of our faucet, or water running in a river. All of these expressions of the environment are important expressions of our well-being. And so when we feel that the environment's not quite in balance, we're usually not feeling quite in balance. And likewise, when we feel more in balance, we're kinder and more harmonious to our environment. So in Gramercy Park, which is a part of New York, we're going to be anchoring what will eventually become global public access. We're going to be hearing from people in other parts of the world. In other parts of the world, they'll have different expressions of combinations of these elements: earth, air, sky, water, like that. Now we're going to move from Gramercy Park to Audrey Wolf. Audrey Wolf is also a master teacher at the Ramtha School of Enlightenment, and as you know, What the Bleep Do We Know has many contributors in the scientific, religious, and philosophic field. This interview with Audrey Wolf shows you just how far down the rabbit hole you can go. So enjoy this interview with Audrey Wolf.
This show is an interview with Audrey Wolf, who's both a student and a teacher at the Ramtha School of Enlightenment. This school teaches a series of disciplines in the tradition of the schools of ancient wisdom. Ancient wisdom refers to the deep, profound knowledge that we can live a life totally conscious of our God within. This God within is the greatest power in the universe, and through alignment of our humanity with this divinity, which is indeed our divinity, all miracles, all creations, and all dreams can be achieved and brought into full manifestation. Although some people can be stimulated by those masters farther along the path, effort of both applying and providing full knowledge of the human experience has been called throughout the ages by earnest seekers and masters the great work. Always our humanity, through laziness, fear, pleasure, or power-seeking, distracts us from this glorious promise of a life lived so totally and so fully that even death and decay of the body is overcome. Today's nanotechnology and genetic engineering impels us to reconsider the knowledge that these schools of ancient wisdom taught, often in secret throughout the ages. This knowledge given to bring power, harmony, and balance into society is as relevant today in this modern society as it was at any time in the past. Modern medical technology gives only a hint of a vast yet unremembered human potential. The students at the Ramtha School of Enlightenment work hard to achieve a higher possibility of life. Many have accomplished the miraculous, some turning cancerous bodies of death's door into perfect health, growing new teeth, levitating, experiencing other dimensions, walking through walls, seeing behind blindfolds, but most importantly, unfolding a life of greater joy and peace. Students in the ancient schools of wisdom learned that the world around them is a reflection of their thought. Today, the Ramtha School of Enlightenment teaches a discipline that demonstrates this truth and enhances the students' ability to bring their dreams into reality. And this is mastery. Audrey Wolf is a master at the discipline called Finding Your Card. She can find, while blindfolded, a simple card placed on a pasture fence with a drawing of what she wants to manifest in her life. This is one of the most important disciplines in the school. It can only be achieved through focus and the ability to hold a thought in the frontal lobe of the brain until the thought is brought into reality. In this case, until the blindfolded student walks up to their card. Audrey can consistently find her card in a pasture, often with 1,000 other students who are also looking for their cards among the 1,000 or more cards. In this interview, Audrey tells her history with the school, how she achieved this mastery and what it brought into her life. I hope you enjoy as much as I do this story of a simple human being who is humble, vulnerable, and feminine, and yet who can show again and again that the seemingly impossible is not only possible, but is our birthright. Thank you for joining us, Audrey.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Can I ask you how you met Ramtha?
Yes, I had picked up the white book called Ramtha, and I had read it, and it just touched me so much inside. I just cried throughout the whole book and knew that that's the message that was in it was what I'd been looking for years, about who I was and why I was here and what I could do with the rest of my life.
Now, when you read this book, what were you doing in your life at that moment? Had you had children and the typical wife thing?
Yes, I have 4 sons, and at that time they were all grown. And my husband and I were involved with real estate development in Southern California. He was an architect, and we built apartments and shopping centers, and we had kind of put it all together, and we're at a point in our lives where it was like, okay, what next? I mean, how many trips can you take, you know? And it was like, there's got to be more than just this. We've realized this dream. Now what do we do?
Because real estate development's very demanding, isn't it?
Yes, it is very demanding. You know, when you're starting out, it's 10, 12, 14 hours a day, and trying to do that and keep a home life and a marriage, it was very strenuous on both of us. So we were both anxious to reach that point where we had time now. And
what do you think you were looking for initially in the real estate development, you and your husband? I mean, at one time it was a dream, a manifestation to be accomplished?
Yes, to be accomplished. My husband, being an architect, of course, had always had this dream. And, you know, for me, it was seeing the reality of something that he could draw on paper become real. And that was something I always admired, to be able to create something in your mind and then have it manifest.
Right.
And I had never been able to do that. You know, I always thought that was someone else can create, and I had no ability to do that. That's
you mean in all the time that you were doing the real estate development, you didn't think you were a creator?
No. I could follow through on someone else's creation, but to sit there and create it myself was like, oh, I can't do that, you know?
Really?
Yeah.
Now, what was it like the first time you approached the field and this concept of finding a card with hundreds of other cards on a pasture fence blindfolded? What was that like the first time?
Well, by the time we progressed to finding cards, it was, of course, it was a challenge. But the first time that we were ever put on the field with blindfolds to focus, all we had to do was find a fence. There were no cards. And I was out there all day, never found a fence. And all my frustration came up, my fears, my wanting to quit. This is ridiculous. I'm not going to put up with this anymore. And, you know, got bumped into, hurt, cried. And at the very end, I said, you know, I don't care what it takes to learn to focus. I will never go through this again. And that's when I determined I was going to learn to focus and got rid of all those fears and everything else. So when he put us on the field with cards, it was easy.
Really? Because of that time of just finding the fence?
Yes. Of just letting all the emotions come up. Just let them come up and deal with them and get rid of them and say, okay, I don't want to do that anymore. I'm done with it.
Is that God's decision? You made a decision you didn't want to suffer in that way, the crying? And
That's right. I made the decision that on and off through all my life, this is what humanity has done. And I knew that I didn't want to be that anymore. I didn't need that to use for excuses not to do something I was afraid of, or use it for attention, or for whatever reason it was there, that I realized that it was gone. I didn't need it. I was through with it, and this whole vista of opportunities of what I could do was opening for me, and that to me was more intriguing, more exciting than any emotion I could have felt.
and to get hung up on the fear or the
That's
frustration
right.
or the
Yes.
tears or...
Yes.
That's an amazing story.
Yes.
Do you think that you had all of this potential just sort of ready to burst forth when you were supporting your husband in the real estate development?
I think so, and I think that also goes back to the social consciousness of, you know, the woman stands behind the man and she works behind him and he's the great, which he was. My husband was very wonderful and talented, but it seemed like there was never time to develop a dream I might have had, even though at the moment I didn't know what it was.
You didn't know what it was, but you didn't see yourself as a manifester, and clearly now you're one of the most outstanding students in the school, and the school is about manifestation.
Yes, yes. It's about manifestation and being able to realize that we have the power within us every day to manifest. It's just, what do you want to manifest? And it's just so exciting for me to be able to think of something I really want and know how to just keep focusing on it and knowing that it's mine. And then, of course, you go through, there's a lot of things that you say, well, I want this, I want that, but when you know you could have it anytime you want it, all of a sudden it's not that important anymore.
So priorities come up, you think?
Priorities come up.
Now, Ramtha has said that women have the mind of a magician. So instead of getting hung up on being needy and feeling we have to be in this relationship and so on, we can tap into something magical. What does this mean to you in the mind of a magician and the feminine part?
Well, I believe that women are all very intuitive, and I think especially women that have had children. I think having a child just tunes you right into that center of yours. And being able to realize that you could do that at any time, but in this atmosphere, you're free to do it. You don't feel vulnerable. You don't have to worry about expressing your thoughts or anything and having someone twist them around, you know, and use it against you. You don't feel vulnerable. You feel really free.
So you just write on your card what you want, and then you focus.
Yes, I either write on a card or I draw a symbol that represents the words, because a lot of it is so personal to me that instead of, and because I'm so well known, that I'm always a little shy about letting everyone know what I'm working on, so I don't always put it in words. Right. But I will draw a symbol that only has meaning for me, and just focusing on it, and it brings me joy, and every time I do it, it develops my focus ability deeper and deeper, and you know, I go on the field and I just shut everything off. And it's not about just finding the card, but developing that level of focus that brings me to the card. And it also opens up doorways along the way, experiences that I have on the field before I ever even find a card. You know, of being able to access other dimensions and not being able to remember where I go, but I know when I've been there. Because at one time when I returned to this dimension or this plane, I was outside the field. And Ramtha said that that was the only way that I would believe I actually made the trip, was because my God threw me outside the fence. Say, okay, you've been someplace, realize it. And so from then on, every experience that I have believed that it's not my imagination, that it's not my ego making up things, that it really occurs for me. And the places, I come back with such a feeling of peace and joy and wonderment. And it's almost like everything around me just takes on a different realm, a different color, a different, just the little things.
The color of a leaf or the sky?
The color of a leaf. It could be just fascinating, like it's the first time I've seen it, or the stars, or, or even a storm.
Right.
Just wonderment.
But speaking of storms, you've had your typical storms in human life and human drama, the relationships and people. I sense oftentimes people want to escape into another dimension, but it doesn't seem as though it's about escaping. It's about mastering it.
Yes, I think that's very true. People not wanting to deal with their attitudes or whatever situation is going on with them at the moment, and instead of wanting to deal with it and own it and get rid of it, they want to run away from it. And I just truly believe that until you face it and solve it here, you're going to have to just keep coming back over and over. And that it's so much easier just to deal with it and get rid of it than to try to battle it day after day after day.
So when you're on the field and you're watching all of the students blindfolded, looking for their cards, and you know that they've put their hopes and their dreams up on those cards that are on the pasture fence, what goes through your mind in trying to encourage them to achieve what you have?
Well, what I do is I try to bring up the feeling of what I feel and the passion that I would have for my dreams that would be on the card. And knowing that when they do accomplish it, I know the passion and the joy and the happiness they're going to have. And I want them to experience that so much that sometimes at the end of a session, I almost feel exhausted, because I try to put so much of it out there for them, and the love that I feel for them. Because some of the anguish they go through, I understand because I was there too. So I understand what they're going through. And I also understand that when they reach the other side, what it feels like. And that once they feel that, they'll never want to go back to the anguish again. And sometimes I feel sad because I see the ones that don't care. And I feel so sad that they're missing. And I just, try to give them hope that they will see the greater good of this. And then I see the ones that they're in heaven, just walking across the field, and they look like they're floating. They're so light, and knowing that when they leave, their life's going to be changed forever. And it's just, pure joy for me to see that.
That's wonderful. When you say some people don't care, do you think it's because they want to protect themselves from the disappointment that they can't accomplish?
That could be. I think a lot of it is doubt. They don't think that they can do it. I know that the school is not for everyone, and some people come, they listen, but they don't really believe, or maybe they're not quite ready yet in their life, and some of them just may go through the motions. But yet I know people that do that, and they go away for a year or two, and they never really forget, and they come back. And when they come back, now they really truly believe that they can do it, and they do it.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
It's wonderful. I mean, you are aware that people think that you're highly accomplished, that you're close to Ramtha, and you must have worked in many lifetimes, and you have an ability that they don't have. Yet I feel You don't feel this way.
No, I don't. And I've had a lot of hardships in my life. I know at one time Ramtha had me stand up in front of the school and tell them the story of my life. Because even he said, "You think she's had it so easy?
That she can just do this."
That she just does it. But I want her to tell you, she's had a life. She's been and done and had it hard. She's had anguish, she's had tears, she's had disappointments. She's been poor, she's been wealthy, but she's overcome it all. And it wasn't easy. It was easy once I made up my mind that that's what I wanted.
That, in other words, you were creating all of this.
Yes.
You became convinced. When did you become convinced that you created your reality?
The first time I found the card, and the very next day it manifested.
Can you talk about it, or was it private?
No, I can talk about it. It was very interesting because he had us draw an object on a card, a very simple object like a feather or something very simple but very distinctive, that when you found it, you know it was yours. And so I wanted to make sure that when it manifested that I knew that that was mine, that it wasn't just a white feather on the field or, something like that. So I drew like a rock that was almost in the shape of a heart, and I colored it pink. So I wanted it very distinctive. And I know that my partner at the time, she looked at me, she said, "Well, good luck with that one." Well, the next day we were walking along the field looking for our cards to take off the fence, and of course I had found that card. And there was a hole on the field, and I stumbled, and I grabbed a hold of somebody for to keep from falling, and I looked down, and right in front of me was a pink quartz stone in the shape of a heart.
Wow, so that was speaking to you.
Yes. And from that day forward, I'll never have doubt.
Now, but how does that relate to, say, personal relationships, to raising children, to dealing with spouses, with financial problems in businesses?
Well,
because I know you've known all of these.
I've known all of them. I knew all of that before I came to the school. I look back and at some of the experiences that I had with raising a family and being a wife and a mother and a businesswoman. And it was like, oh, if I only knew then what I know now. And I can see how, because I know people that are in the school that practice this in their daily life, and I see how easy it comes together for them. And being able to share this knowledge with your family or your mate or your business, and how it can just expand and be the kind of reality that you want it to be, and not someone else's but yours, and truly believe that it can be that way.
And from your God, not from your image.
That's right. Don't come from the image. Come from the God within you, and realize that our God doesn't judge us. We can have everything. That we don't have to say, well, we can't make a lot of money, or we can't have all these material things in our life. We can't, want to manifest jewels or furs or houses or cars, gold, money. That's not God-like, and that's not true. Whatever you want to manifest, God will just give it to you if you're focused and you really want it. Whether it's these wonderful so-called things we want, or if we're sitting there manifesting sickness or illness, that's what we're going to get.
Right.
So it doesn't matter. It's just that we're beginning to learn, watch your thoughts, because what you think is what you're going to get.
Do you think as women that we have to watch our thoughts even more? I mean, maybe that's not quite worded right, but that there's some feminine power some manifestation ability, and if we feel like victims or we need to be dependent, that will create that too?
Well, I think so, because so much, especially like my generation or something, that this was the way that we were raised. You know, you get married, you have a family, you support your husband and this and that, and then it's very difficult to rise above that. Whereas the younger generation today, because of all the things that the older women have gone through and have changed and have taught them, that the younger generation of women today have really got it made because of the footsteps that we've laid down, you know. And they're being raised differently. They're being taught differently. And to be able to get this knowledge out to them, can you imagine what their generation, their children are going to have, even if it's boys?
It'll be interesting, though, because I sense, Audrey, that you have owned these experiences. You say maybe you could have gotten a head start by being in this generation and so on, but you've owned them, and now your attention is on other dimensions, and you're wise and you're mature. This is acceptable to you. You can find yourself outside of the field. Can you talk more about other dimensions? Why this happens to you?
It happens because it's what I have worked on and focused on for a long time, was that there's a lot of things on this dimension that I have already experienced, that I've already dealt with, that I've already owned, so to speak, and I want to know something new, the unknown. And that the one thing that's unknown is another dimension, another timeline, or another place far away. And to realize that even though I could go there in consciousness, that I could also take the body, the physical body with me, to be able to take this body that this God created and take it to other dimensions, or transport it to other places, or being able to just make it a part of me instead of it's separate. That
Separate from consciousness.
separate from consciousness.
But the body and the consciousness are one.
Are one, and that it's a beautiful thing to have, that it's a creation of God. And why would I want to destroy it or leave it behind? I want to take everything that God created with me,
Right.
whether it's my body or the consciousness or the knowledge. And the more that I learn, the more knowledge, the more